to Ride Rehab on WDWNT.com. My name is Tyler Mann.
And I'm Thomas Kiernan.
And today we're recording this episode from inside the Touch and Taste Labs in the Imagination Pavilion. And there's a lot of awesome stuff back here. It's pretty rad that, like, you can't get here on the ride because Figment always takes you to his open house.
Eric Idle keeps trying to taste me.
So today we're going to talk all about Imagination, the Imagination Pavilion at Epcot at Walt Disney World in Florida on planet Earth.
To finish up Future World, we're gonna talk about Imagination.
First, I think we should talk about just a very brief history of Journey into Imagination and the Imagination Pavilion. So
right.
It was something that opened after Epcot officially opened.
Mm-hmm.
Before it opened, the characters of Dreamfinder and Figment had already been designed. They were sort of the only characters of the park because there was not any Disney characters or intellectual properties in Epcot at that time. So these were the first original characters sort of that Epcot had. You can meet them outside the pavilion. Dreamfinder was a face character with a little puppet Figment that could like take a kid's hat off their head and like try and like eat their face and stuff. I don't know. When you watch videos, that's pretty much all you see. The ride officially opened in 1983, and it lasted all the way from 1998. We get to join Dreamfinder and Figment on this wonderful journey into imagination, where we see how stuff like the performing arts, technology and science, how all these things can be created from your imagination and from other sparks of inspiration throughout the world. This ride eventually went away because Michael Eisner thought, hey, we need to make this place more hip, more cool with the kids.
Ironically, when Michael Eisner did that, he broke his hip because he was an old man even then.
And so in 1998, Journey into Imagination closed down. And for a year, only about a year, they gutted all the imaginative awesome stuff from this ride, and they created Journey into Your Imagination, in which the ride starts by telling you have no imagination, and then they proceed to show you like illusions and color and be like, this is how imagination works.
And is this the Eric Idle version that we saw, or
this is the Eric Idle one where they have a fish swimming out of a fishbowl, and we hear that weird like soundtrack that's very unnerving.
Oh, okay. You played me the music from this. So this is the transitional one between
between what we rode and the original.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
The really bad one that closed only after 2 years.
Yes. Okay.
It also featured such things as a house upside down and a cement block crashing through a table, but there's no glass in the table. Wow, a surprise! It was clearly not anything that came from a place of creativity or imagination, ironically. And then at the end of the ride, it says, look how imaginative you are. And it shows you like a baby with an alligator for a head. It was so bizarre. And Eric Idle was only really in there because the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience show was in the Imagination Theater. They wanted to keep it themed to the Imagination Institute, which was okay. He's just such a boring character, and the fact that Figment came from his head does not make any sense at all. Eventually, the ride did close only a couple years after it was open. So 2001 it closed, and then we now have the version that is from 2002. A lot of the original ride was cut out. Like half the track was taken out. The amazing Flight into Imagination sequence was basically now the load area, which is gross, and the theme is just like the Imagination Institute. They even got rid of the second floor, which was now a Disney Vacation Club lounge. Their ImageWorks is just completely out of date, and they brought back Captain EO, and then they got rid of Captain EO from the theater, and now it's the Pixar Short Film Festival, which is movies that were not made for that theater because they don't know what to put in that theater. Now, we know that there's huge changes coming to Epcot, and those are probably going to include Journey into Imagination, because that ride is not only outdated, but a lot of people don't like it. My favorite thing that you ever said on one of our previous episodes was the bit about the smell lab.
Oh,
You said it.
I said that everyone knows that Walt Disney's vision for Epcot was to have a purple dragon fart in your face to demonstrate that you can smell.
So we are gonna do a big ride rehab for Imagination and Journey into Imagination and for the theater. So we figured we'd as much as we can blue sky this, we figured we'd do some specifics. We'd figure out, since we're cracking down on one ride in particular, we're gonna come up with multiple ideas. We're gonna come up with what if we modify the ride the way it currently is to something else? Much in the same way Disney already did it, we keep this like same track layout. Maybe we'll change the load and unload areas. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to see if we can try and make it back to the original Journey into Imagination it used to be through any means necessary.
You say the original, I say the original, a remake of the original where they fixed things that were wrong with the original.
Right.
If there was, obviously I've seen videos of the original. I've obviously never read it.
I wrote it once in 1997 when I was 6 years old.
There you go.
All I remembered was that literature section where there's like cats and he's singing about blood and gore. That scared me so much. That was so scary to a 6-year-old kid. That was my only memory of that park. So yeah, we're gonna see if we can bring it back to the way it used to be, which is something people always want, is just bring back the original Imagination. But we'll do whatever we can to.
Exactly. I refer to it as cynical corporate, the cynical corporate version that will eventually come to replace Epcot. Or Epcot. That's
Epcot.
It. Epcot.
Right. Intellectual Property Community of Tomorrow.
That's right. That's the one I have ready. I don't know if you have a cynical cash grab version.
Oh no, but we can definitely talk about that.
Oh, we will.
I got some ideas. Well, then we'll come up with fresh new ideas. Something reimagining the entire pavilion altogether.
Oh sure, why not? Why not? The sky's the limit. Okay, well I wrote down the ideas that I've been mulling about for the last since you told me to reinvent Journey into Imagination. Let's start where it is right now. First of all, get rid of it.
Get rid of it?
Get
the whole thing.
Get rid of the theming. I don't well, maybe not the theming.
Institute.
The Imagination Institute. I don't know. It doesn't feel it's annoying more than anything. It's the annoying trying to be funny comedy that bothers me. We can't do anything new with Eric Idle is the other thing because he's way too old.
Yeah.
My thought is we go back to basics. We go back to the Dreamfinder. Now, it won't be called the Imagination Institute. It'll be some institution of some kind. But the Imagination Institute's a bit too sterile. I don't know.
Sterile makes sense.
Silly.
It's like it's a laboratory. It's like a science building.
Make it. So here's how I picture Dreamfinder. Dreamfinder is a man who clearly has all these wonderful ideas and imagination, and he's also an inventor. Dreamfinder has allowed us to journey into the imagination by building a gateway into the collective unconscious, and that's where he goes to find dreams.
So sort of like a mix between the original ride where he has that awesome air balloon. He travels into the world to find the imagination, and kind of a mixture of the comic book as well, which we're probably going to talk about a little bit.
You'll talk about the comic book because I haven't read it. I know it's written by Jim Zub, and is it written by, right?
It's written by Jim Zub, yes.
Yes. Okay. Or you have said that I might like it, but I have yet to read it. Yes, sure. If that's what it sounds like to you, then yeah, probably. But he can create a gateway into the collective unconscious, and he looks for dreams or ideas or imagination, whatever, a spark of inspiration, something like that. And so that's the entrance to the ride. Not you have the load area, which can look like, I don't know, a crazy uncle's attic where it's filled with like crazy beakers and weird inventions.
Kind of like Mystic Manor-y kind of area.
A little bit,
not
sure.
Not a collector of antiquities
yeah.
like...
I mean,
like
that could be part of it.
Looking through the comic book right now, and what happens is he works at sort of a university. He's a scientist, and he wants to create a machine that can basically create life from your imagination, and he dreams up Figment because it was a character that he invented when he was a child. And then his machine, he has such focus on imagination or energy in the machine that it opens up a giant portal, and he gets sucked into all these amazing worlds. He meets different creatures, and he eventually has to face his own self-doubt. It's a pretty incredible comic.
Sure. We won't go that far where we have a character-based narrative for Dreamfinder, but certainly I like the idea of that you travel into a new dimension, and in this case it's the collective unconscious. I was going to say that would be the first segment of the ride. The ride vehicle itself would be like, this will be your chariot into imagination.
Yeah, I like that.
And you'll have some excuse like, you must stay inside the containment field, so please keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle, or something like that.
So it's so kind of like steampunky-ish?
Like, a
sort
little,
of like
I guess.
what the
Yeah.
comic looks
Yeah.
like.
A little bit of focus, or a little technology based before we enter the imagination itself, and then you enter, and then Dreamfinder shows up, and he'll be some new famous actor. So
you're thinking like a video screen or like...
Well, yeah, the first introduction to Dreamfinder will have some actor portraying him similar to Eric Idle, but he'll just be sort of explaining how the process works. You go through some sick-ass optical illusion type thing. Maybe, you know those rotating tubes that make the... or those rotating rooms that make the room feel like it's spinning?
Yep.
Go through one of those, and then suddenly, you're in the collective unconscious, and then we meet Figment, who is the guide through this. He and Dreamfinder are guides in this world of imagination.
We should probably take a moment right now to talk about Figment as he currently appears.
Yes.
He used to be this whimsical invention and sort of like the spirit of childhood.
Yes,
with Dreamfinder, the way he talks.
Yes, that was the whole thing. He was I'll give you a dash of childish delight.
Exactly. Whereas in the current version, Journey into Imagination with Figment, he's like, I'm gonna mess with everything, and it's like, Figment, don't you dare! Oh no! He's not endearing.
No, he's more annoying than he is. And when they think of Figment, they probably think of like a figment of imagination is chaotic and crazy and runs around doing things. And sure, if the idea is to contrast the other traveler, in this case the Dreamfinder or Eric Idle, the other character's personality, then that's fine, I guess. But you gotta be careful, because otherwise you get into annoying territory.
Like Stitch in Stitch's Great Escape, where it's not the Stitch that we know from Lilo and Stitch. It's a Stitch that just wants to burp in your face and fart on your head. I don't know. I haven't been on that ride in a while.
Sure.
But so Figment's our guide is the last thing you were saying.
Yes. Figment will... Well, Figment and Dreamfinder together, because Dreamfinder's not from the collective unconscious, and Figment is. Figment is a representation of Dreamfinder's imagination, and there's an idea we're going to play with a little bit more later when we reach the ImageWorks. We'll get. I'll touch on that a little more again there later. And so Dreamfinder explains all these things, and then we travel through the imagination, and it's probably basically the same ride as before, just a little more dramatic as far as the things that happen, where it's like, we can use imagination to write horror movies, or we can use them to make a stage play, or we can use them to do science and things like that, and we sort of do there. And maybe something can go wrong and you're chased by a nightmare or a bad idea or something like that, and it's hard to get... Oh no, you've got a bad idea! Those things are hard to get rid of! Quick! Make your way through the something chamber and they blast you there or whatever.
That'd be cool. We already have that air feature at the end, where they blast you in the face.
The jump scare?
The jump scare, yeah. I was worried if I should tell everyone in our group when we went that was going to happen, because I remember I plugged my ears at that, like, a second before he goes, imagination is a blast! At which point they blast you with air, there's a flash, and then everything goes dark, and the wall lifts up in front of you to reveal a new set, but you don't see the wall going away.
And then I yell profanity, and some mother looks at me angrily. I don't know if that actually happened.
It's a pretty frightening thing. I don't know how kids don't cry when that happens to them on the ride. Kids aren't going on that ride. But anyways.
No one's going on that ride, apparently.
So where are we on your ride now? Is that pretty much the end then? There's a bad idea and we get rid of it?
Sure. A bad idea or a nightmare or something something to add a little bit of dramatic tension to the story. Make it timeless, and that's the other good part about bringing it into the collective unconscious, because it means that you're in another dimension and the rules of regular world don't apply. So
Right.
if you see like 1920s movie stars, you can just say, oh, that's just how people imagine movies. Or something like that.
And that's the thing with the ride now. It still feels kind of dated to that, like, early 2000s-ish era when all those movies that were coming out, like Flubber and...
Oh, yeah, especially with the
those
Doors
movies
and stuff.
were... They're still very dated, even if you watch them now, in just the way science is portrayed in that time. Like, they say that they want to make Epcot and hopefully Journey into Imagination more Disney and more timeless, and to make it timeless does not mean to put it in this time period.
Yes.
Like they did with Journey into Your Imagination to make it more hip with the kids. It needs to be a particular era or something. Like Victorian era is a good thing to work with, especially if you can make it a little bit steampunky. Like that still works.
I was going to say that look works for Dreamfinder, because whenever you see the guy in the top hat and the jackets, the jackets they had back then, the tailcoats or whatever, you think this man is an enigmatic gentleman and he's going to teach me a few things. Like I think of Willy Wonka, and I was very enthralled with it. But that sort of look to him, that can also be timeless, just because he's a weirdo inventor, so he can dress however he wants.
Yeah.
Timeless does not mean in the current era. It means can be applied to any era and still resound true.
So what would you do with the Image Labs then?
So the Image Labs, those are really outdated.
They are. Nothing there works even.
Yes.
And the technology of, like, wave your hands and you can conduct Figment is like, we have Wii Music to do that. Anyone could do that with their phone now.
And then, of course, he only plays, like, one instrument at a time, and it's really depressing. And
that's it fell into the same trap of Innoventions, where you just can't update that enough because you'd be updating it once a year, which, oh my god, how awful. You have to actually update this thing to keep it relevant. I'm sure that... So what was your idea going to be for the...
So make it like a Build-A-Bear type place.
The ImageWorks. It was called the ImageWorks. The What If Labs is what it was called. My apologies.
The ImageWorks. What I would say is basically make it into... You can have all the Figment and Dreamfinder merch. Make it into like a Build-A-Bear type place where kids can make their own Figment of imagination. Where they
already had the base of that in the current ride, where you design it on the computer.
Yeah, but that's very... Well, I guess... a Build-A-Bear type place would also be very limited.
Yeah.
But, arguably, you have, like, a few different types of animals, a few different types of wings, a few different types of horns. You have all these different things, and then you're like, how many eyes do you want to give it? And the kid's like, 14! And you're like...
That'll be $50 an eye, please.
Yeah, something like that. But that could be a fun little interactive thing, and it reminds you that imagination is different for everyone, and that's one of the things that the new ride really doesn't showcase, is the versatility and the way that everyone imagines things differently.
Yes. Unlike the first version of Eric Idle, where it tells you have no imagination.
Precisely.
There is nothing in your head.
Yeah, you actually put the children's imagination to the test. I say to the test at the end. You let them do something with their imagination. In this case, it's build a Figment of imagination. Right. But that was my idea for ImageWorks, and maybe have some interactable touchscreen type stuff. You can have the conducting an orchestra. Just make it at least as good as the Kinect was when it came out, and that thing was really bad. And
even now, that's outdated.
Oh yeah.
Too. Well, what I was gonna do is probably what you were gonna do was like get rid of Eric Idle and find a way to get Dreamfinder back in there. I think changing the Imagination Institute to be even just a little bit more modern, or put it a little bit more back in time. So even if it's dated, it's at least dated quite a bit in a way that it wasn't. Like, this ride wasn't around in the 60s or, like, the 1800s, but maybe make it like the 1800s. Just make it a little bit more grounded in time. Like, imagination has existed forever.
Yeah.
So maybe just take it a little bit further back instead of today. in the comic, it's a little bit more like the university, and I'll talk about that when we talk about how to actually properly redo the ride.
I was gonna say, if I say don't set it in a specific era, just be like, this is Dreamfinder's attic or this is Dreamfinder's home.
Yeah.
And it's just got weird mechanisms from that look like they could be from any century that a weirdo built in his basement or in his attic.
I'm gonna do something bad. I'm gonna say that in this version of redoing it again, maybe I won't bring back Dreamfinder. Like, just in this particular instance.
Sure.
I'd say update the main actor. Instead of Eric Idle, make it someone a little bit more younger. Someone that children or teens might actually identify today. And I've said this before, and you kind of gave me a look. Maybe Neil Patrick Harris. He's slightly charismatic. He already has like a thing for like magic and talking to fictional characters. He was the host of World of Color, which was a water show at California Adventure. And he's talking to an animated Mickey Mouse, and it's like, okay, I buy that, because he's a very animated person. It's not like we're gonna get Benicio del Toro to be the new Dr. Nigel Channing. He's like, it's a journey into imagination. Like, I don't want someone like that. I want someone who can be like, welcome to Journey into Imagination. I'm Neil Patrick Harris. Ta-da! Or something.
I feel... Here's the thing. You're imagining him very animated. I'm imagining him there in a tux with just like his hands in his pocket.
Oh, hello.
Hi. I'm Neil Patrick Harris, and you're here on your way. And he's not uncharismatic, but he's just kind of bland.
It should still be Figment. It should be the animated one.
Oh, absolutely.
Is what you mean,
yes,
right?
Figment absolutely gets to stay.
But I'd say get someone more current, someone who is actually charismatic, like maybe like a Daisy Ridley kind of type. She's,
you know what? Why not Daisy Ridley?
Daisy Ridley would be great, and her British accent would be like very scientific-y sounding.
I mean,
because I'm just making a stereotype of a British accent.
But then we have the problem of overlapping
Star Wars. But she does appear in the A Galaxy Far, Far Away show. Yeah, that's on the stage.
Okay,
really watch.
Well, regardless, it's Disney protecting their intellectual property, where they're like,
give her a pair of glasses and put her hair down.
I was going to say she's a different character, and they just have to do that.
Or you know what? You know who Disney's worked with a bunch? Martin Short. He's still kind of
no.
I mean, he makes
No. No.
I kind of liked him in the Canada movie.
Oh yeah, He's perfectly...
he's perfectly passable?
He's perfectly passable, but I don't think he's relevant enough in this day and age.
How about Oprah?
No.
Why not?
Kids don't like Oprah.
But she's in Wrinkle in Time, and that movie is going to do amazing.
I hope
possibly.
I hope, actually. That actually... The more I've seen of it, the more I'm like, I want that to do well. And that would actually probably... Well, we'll get into that later as well.
Anyways, so we have we have the new Dr. Nigel Channing, whoever they may be. And this time we may go into like the scientific-y kind of thing, but we'll start with imagination always starts with a spark. And how does that happen? When you see other things. And maybe we'll have like a wall of like other things that can inspire you, like books and movies and stuff. We'll start with that, because that's where imagination usually comes from, is from seeing other things. And that's the case where we gather the imagination. And maybe we'll see like books flying across, like in Ukulele, where stuff's like flying through tubes.
Sure.
In the Ivory Towers area.
Sure, why not?
Then the next area will be like, then we got to put those ideas into a spark of imagination. And then maybe we'll see Figment pop up, and he's like, I'm the spark of imagination. And then you can start singing One Little Spark. Sure. I think the key here is One Little Spark absolutely needs to be in everything.
I was going to say, well, I didn't mention it in my ride, but yeah, definitely keep that. Maybe... I was going to say, maybe... I genuinely love the introduction of Figment with Dreamfinder, where he sings about making the Figment, and I want to see like a projected animation of Figment coming together.
Yes, when he's like two tiny wings.
And then two tiny wings would like flutter in front of the audience, and then it's like two tiny wings, eyes big and yellow, two eyes blink open.
He sort of like materializes.
Exactly.
Piece by
piece. I think that could be a really cool effect that could be done quite well in this day and age, especially with... They could even do it as one of those animatronics that they project onto. That would be cool.
To make the face a little bit more expressive, or the eyes.
Exactly, something like that. That'd be really cool. Or they could literally just animate it in where it's like hand drawn or 3D or whatever they want to do.
Yeah, that'd be cool to see a
where they
2D version.
Yeah, and then later we see him turn 3D. That'd be a cool effect.
That would be a really cool effect.
I just imagined like him turning like we're going through some part of it. And
what
he's,
about
like,
he
flying...
starts off as like a sketch, and then he turns into a drawing, and then that drawing comes to life out of the paper.
That would be cool.
Especially since if we're coming from the idea of like books starting off the ride.
I do like the idea of him going from 2D to 3D. How that happens isn't really.
Well, you know how like Jack Sparrow, that had like the Pepper's Ghost effect, where it went from like a skeleton to animatronic.
Disneyland Shanghai.
Yeah,
something like that maybe.
But yeah, so we continue on, and it's like, now that we have a spark of imagination, let's build it into an idea, and then maybe we could just see like more ideas flowing around you, or we eventually we learn about imagination, we see examples of it exactly like the way we used to, where it's like arts and literature and science and books, and then we see how all that culminates, and maybe we see ourselves, like maybe they took a picture or a video of us, and they can like. You know how in like Haunted Mansion, how they make something appear in your car?
Yeah,
what if they have like you as like a cowboy or something? Like they put a hat on you and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
They takes an idea and they bring it to life, and they bring it to life by showing you a part of that idea or something. Maybe like a scene. I'm not exactly sure how much further you can go with that, because the ride track is so limited in this ride, and like you can only ever cut out more of it. But moving on, ImageWorks, like it just needs to work better than a phone from like 2005. Like you gotta update it with something, even if it's just like Nintendo games or something. Just anything you can do with a motion stick or a kid touching a button. I want to be able to touch a light panel on the wall and it works. That's all I need for the ImageWorks.
How many times did we go on that ride? 3 times?
We went on it about 3 or 4 times in total, I think.
That light wall never worked.
And every time we walked by it, a kid would be trying to use it, and it still never worked.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, there's like light panels on the wall, vertical panels, and it's a Simon game.
Yeah,
it shows you a color and then you tap it. But every time you tap it, it just tells you you're wrong.
Yeah,
like the original Journey into Your Imagination. You talked about an idea of how to sort of bring back Dreamfinder. I talked about updating the ride itself. To just be sort of more modern. So let's do something fun. Let's scrap the entire pavilion.
Yes.
It's gone now. Maybe we keep those glass domes because they're still pretty cool.
They look pretty sweet.
It's iconic.
But you gut the building.
Let's gut the entire attraction, including that Disney Vacation Club lounge on the 2nd floor.
Sure.
We went there. How long did we spend in that gift shop looking for hats? And you didn't even notice the staircase up to the 2nd floor.
I do remember seeing the staircase, because I remember seeing some dumb kids start to walk up it. Then their parents came along and were like, you can't go up there.
Yeah, and there's a person standing there like making sure no one's going up there. But that used to be the main thing in the lobby. Let me go over what the original lobby used to be.
Sure.
It was only the small section, like the lobby that we currently have is like half a circle. Mm-hmm. Because that whole circle used to be the loading area, and smack dab in the middle was the staircase. So when you entered the pavilion, you'd see this gorgeous mural on the wall of what was going to happen in the original Journey into Imagination ride. And then the ride vehicles would be right there. They'd just be slow. It'd kind of be like an Omnimover, except the cars would, once they turned a corner, they'd break apart and start going faster into individual trains instead. But the load area looked like it was one continuous chain, which was cool. Right. So that was how simple that load area was, because people were always continuously boarding. The line moved pretty quickly. Gutting the entire attraction. We got to make it so ride system. I'm picturing a trackless ride.
I was
kind
also,
of like the Ratatouille or Mystic Manor rides.
I was also thinking of a trackless ride. I think Mystic Manor more so. I mean, obviously it's a completely different ride, but the way the vehicles move and go around the area, that feels very appropriate for this kind of ride.
Yeah.
This isn't a thrill ride. This is and
there's not
a fun little sort of, it's just a ride where you just sit and enjoy yourself, and I think the trackless vehicles work very well for that.
It's not like Test Track where we want to be zooming around.
Exactly.
It's not like Dinosaur where we got to have a crazy amount of motion.
It's more about the spectacle of the animatronics and the environment you're in, as opposed to the ride itself, the way it works.
A lot, like, whenever I talk about trackless ride vehicles, people have already brought up, but it'll be like Ratatouille, and Ratatouille's already going to be in Epcot, and it doesn't matter. Like, how many Omnimover dark rides are in Magic Kingdom?
I was about to say,
it's not about the system; it's about how you use it.
Yes. Well, I was you mentioned how many Omnimovers are, and I immediately thought of how the Seas and Ariel's Adventure in the different parks have not only the same ride vehicle, but, well, actually, no, just the same ride
They're
vehicle.
also under the sea.
They're also under the sea. That's the other theming that was joining. But yes, those are examples of two different rides that use...
almost the exact same ride system, and even the same ride vehicle.
But I remember Nemo more, just because, one, that illusion where they have the fish projected into the tank, into the actual tank is really cool, and also because the screen for Marlin was messed up when we went to...
So we'd have a trackless ride system because it would be the best working thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also the space is pretty big if you get rid of like the current queue.
Well, that's what we mean by gut it.
And the image works so that when you exit the show building, you exit the building. You don't walk into a giant gift shop. Did you know that there's actually a Kodak store still in the Pavilion? There actually used to be an area just near the corner of where you enter the theater. There used to be a meet and greet for a mascot of Figment. Like,
that's
one of
cool.
those tall, like, Mickey Mouse style
Yeah,
ones.
I get what you're saying.
And that also, before that, it used to be, I believe this is true, it used to be a camera store because Kodak was the original sponsor. Remember when you had to buy, like, disposable cameras and film to put in those cameras? There used to be a camera store so you could buy Kodak products, and that's gone.
I don't
and
remember.
It became a meet and greet, and now that's gone. But you could still see the doors there; they're still there. So use that as the gift shop,
sure.
Or I don't know, just build a gift shop area near like the front of the Pavilion so people can buy stuff before or after they go out, so they don't have to go on the ride. Like, maybe Haunted Mansion doesn't hawk you stuff as soon as you exit it.
Yeah.
Like, the rule is exit through the gift shop, because then you can buy stuff. Like, Tower of Terror exits through a gift shop.
Mm-hmm.
The gift shop for Haunted Mansion, Memento Mori, it's a little bit of a ways away, but you don't have to walk through it when you get off the ride. You get off the ride and you're done. There's nothing else to do. So with Journey into Imagination, I don't think you need to buy stuff right away. But there's plenty of space outside the Pavilion, like just a tiny amount of like the fountain or even like the land area next to it. Or I don't know, maybe the second floor that you have so much space for. Anyways, I think if you're going to keep the Imagination Pavilion the way it is, it should match up with the comics. In the comics, they go through this big portal. It's like a steampunky area, and they arrive at this building, which is a modern day university. Like, Dreamfinder has a statue out front because he saved the day in like the 1800s before he traveled through time and came to the future. And the plot of that comic is that like Dreamfinder's doubt manifests itself into a physical form and takes over all the brainwash. He brainwashes all the students there under his control. And it's a powerful story. It takes place in the building that this Imagination Pavilion is. Tie that into it. So instead, the building is basically the institute, and we see that Dreamfinder is there, and he's going to teach a class. So we get in like these ride vehicles as like an audience, and then he brings up his invention, but something goes terribly wrong, and we get sucked into this portal. And we get to see all these imaginative worlds. In the worlds, there's these sort of like fairy creatures that only communicate through like sound, and there's this giant monster, and there's like a place where he sees like the darkest fears of like his childhood and stuff. Like, let's journey into there. Literally journey into imagination. A world of imagination, which is what we saw in the original ride. And if we're gonna create something brand new, my thing is I still want to keep Dreamfinder and Figment, but do something different.
Yeah, that's fair.
So we literally journey into imagination. We go through all these mystical worlds, and we learn like, oh, that thing's cool. That's a sunbeam. We can use that to paint with, and then we steal some sunbeams. And then at the end of the ride, we're like, now we're gonna create our own Figment. And maybe there's like a panel in front of you that lights up, and it's like
Spaceship Earth.
Like Spaceship Earth. And at the end, we're like, pick your favorite animal. Do you want wings? And we sort of like, we touch all these buttons, and it's like, before we get back to the university, quick, let's manifest something of our own imagination to bring back with us. And then we get to see an animated creature appear on our shoulders in like a mirror or something.
Oh, that would be cool.
So like the ending of
Haunted Mansion.
But instead it's a creation that we made. It's our own Figment.
Yes.
And it's part of the ride. In fact, it's the finale.
All right.
And then at the end, we can see everybody's Figments, including our own, and we can save it to our Magic Band and all that kind of stuff.
Like Test Track.
And then we can like use it on an app. Yeah, like combining all that kind of technology we've already used. Like Test Track's awesome because you create this car. We understand how to create cars. Then we make a car, and then we test it out. In this one, we learn about how imagination works.
Then we test it out.
Then we journey into imagination, and then we make something with our imagination. So we pick all the things we want, and then it creates something. It creates our own Figment. And I think that should be the finale. That would be an amazing way to end the ride.
That was similar to my Build-A-Bear idea, but
yeah.
I guess you could. I
thought you were on a roll with that.
Yeah.
I would put it directly in the ride. Make that the focus.
That's not
creating a Figment.
That's not a bad idea. That's a great idea, actually. And that also makes it cheaper because then you can just.
It makes it cheaper.
Well, you wouldn't have like fabrics and stuff back there with base bodies. You just have like.
Maybe you could still order one.
Pay $80.
Like a My Twin.
Sure. Oh, that would be good. You could like order it, and then if you're staying at the resort for a while, you can wait 24 hours and it'll show up at your whatever resort you're staying at or something like that.
Can you imagine like you create the Figment and then your parent orders it without you knowing, and then like 2 days later you walk into your hotel room and there's like a message from Figment written on the wall, and your Figment is there. What?
I'm sorry, you said written on the wall. I immediately pictured like scary red lettering, like one little spark.
Red rum.
Red rum. But I would think like a note, maybe like taped to the box from Figment, or
like
or
those in-room celebrations.
Yeah, not written on the wall.
But then your like a plush version of your Figment is there. Would be so cute.
That would be wonderful.
That would make so many good memories for kids, and Disney can sell a lot.
Yes, it means they have to make like a Figment production factory, but they can afford that. They can afford to do that.
But speaking of Disney can make a lot of money, what was yours?
Okay, so. We've moved on from the original properties associated with Journey into Imagination, and now we're gonna get cynical and corporate. I can't actually bang this table, and you can't see me making the motion of banging this table because it's an audio format. But the point is, I am banging this table with my hand. But so. Obviously, the obvious choice is Star Wars. Because Star Wars...
Okay, hang on. I haven't heard any... you've been planning this, and I'm like, okay, see, the obvious choice or imagination, I'm like, he's gonna go with Inside Out, because that's what the current rumor,
no.
Star Wars, I'm excited, go on.
Okay, well, basically, you just make it a Star Wars ride. And then,
it's not even imagination.
It's not even about imagination. It's just another Star Wars ride.
It's like
and then
shoehorning Guardians into energy. It has nothing to do with anything.
And then at the end, you have like animatronic Luke being like, "Wow, you used your imagination with the Force." And then General.
Maybe you could tie the Force into imagination. Like your imagination could do anything, like lift rocks.
Anyways, that's the most cynical I can get, is they just make it a Star Wars ride for the sake of having a Star Wars ride. That's like a slow ride that you go through and just sort of marvel at.
Whoa. Marvel?
Well, that brings me to... That's a perfect segue to my next idea, which is Journey into, and it's not going to be imagination, it'll be something else, but Journey into Imagination with Doctor Strange.
Actually, that would work.
That's the one that actually kind of works, where we're introed and it's like we're going through the Sanctum Sanctorum and there's like magical artifacts. Yeah, the low, and then you go through there and it's like, wow, look at all this cool Doctor Strange stuff. And then you get on the ride, and the ride is like, hello, I'm Doctor Strange, and we're going to look at magic and imagination. And then
is this going to be a physical actor?
It would be Benedict. It would
just be Benedict Cumberbatch.
It would have to be Benedict Cumberbatch for the purpose of protecting that IP.
So it'd be an animatronic. It would be.
It would either be an animatronic or it would be a pre-recorded video of him, like
I don't know, making a likeness of a actual person clearly wasn't working well in the Hall of Presidents. So maybe Benedict Cumberbatch is going to be a little bit better.
Well, Benedict Cumberbatch is great because he already looks really weird and gross. So when he goes to animatronic form, he's just going to look normal. That's going to be the problem when they're building the animatronic for him, is that he's going to look too normal, and they're not going to be able to catch the weird Benedict Cumberbatch look.
I have one problem.
And they also would have Mads Mikkelsen in that, so that's two animatronics who are just going to look like regular people.
But Tom, Mads Mikkelsen is in Rogue One, and as we all know,
you're right.
We can't cross stories over between.
Shit, you're right. I didn't even remember that because I don't remember Rogue One.
I have one problem with your ride idea, is that every time we see a Marvel-themed ride, why are we in a vehicle when all these characters are running around? Well, I think we should be walking. It should be a walk-through attraction.
Oh.
Get rid of the ride, vehicles and system.
The walk
Make them run.
Make them run. And if you fall behind, the illusion is broken for you.
And you just fall through the floor?
Or I was going to say, the floor falls away, and then you fall, and then you have to, I don't know, go...
You exit at the gift shop.
Yeah.
It's underground, and you have to climb out.
But my idea would be that it's like Doctor Strange is like, magic is... When I do magic, I also have to use my imagination, because sometimes you have to be creative. Obviously, this ride would not actually be that creative. It would literally be just like him holding his hands up in every scene with the circles appearing, the rune circles. The one room that I actually would have like a good idea for is I picture like the track is in the middle of two like fairly large stages, and on one side of the stage is Doctor Strange doing his magic stuff, his cape billowing in the wind, and on the other side is a giant dragon, and this dragon is purple.
Oh god.
It's not Figment, it's like a big actually scary dragon, but it's just sort of like a nice little reference to what the ride used to be, and the dragon like
dragons
roars
were always
and
green.
That's right, dragons were always green, but he's like a purple dragon, he's got the Figment horns, but he's like... He looks like Smog, but he's another Benedict Cumberbatch character. But
crossovers galore here.
He looks like an actual like scary dragon, not a fun cartoon dragon. And at no point are they like, it's Figment. It's just a little in-ride reference to what it used to be. Other than that, I really don't have much planned out. I wish I had planned out like room by room what this ride would be.
You could. That's what this is for. We could just like talk it out. Because I was gonna say you could attach the Force to imagination or something if you tried really hard.
Sure.
But I don't even think Marvel would work. Like Doctor Strange loosely is probably the best character to teach you about imagination.
The other thing that would happen. It would be that it would literally just be narration talking about imagination, but in actuality, you're just retreading the plot of the movie.
Like Doctor Strange, the imagination stunt show or something?
Or Doctor Strange, the journey into Dormammu. I don't know what Dormammu's
This would probably be
is.
better for the theater, if anything. If we're just going to have a dude come out and talk to you about things.
Well, I'd not come out and talk to you, like Haunted Mansion-style narration, where it's speakers on either side of the ride vehicle, and you're just going through, and he's like... And imagination does this, but in actuality, nothing you're seeing is lining up with what he's saying, because for the visuals of the ride, they've just recreated the movie, and then this is the most cynical we can get.
No one's gonna like this.
Exactly.
Which is why Disney should do it.
Well, that's
given the history of this ride. Well, I say we pave paradise and put in a Pixar thing, which we should make an actual lyrical song out of that line. But Inside Out would probably work perfectly.
Inside Out would work.
Especially Bing Bong is like, there's a place in that movie called Imagination Land.
Sure.
Go through there. I mean,
Journey to Imagination Land. You literally just have to take like a paintbrush and write land on in front of
like how they had Journey into, and then they wrote the words "your" above the title for Your Imagination.
Yeah.
But we'd go into Riley's brain, or we'd see, and like, I guess it would have to.
It would
Riley.
have to be Riley because we know those characters.
Yeah, and maybe Figment's in there. Maybe he still pops up and goes, "Hey, I'm Riley's figment of imagination."
Or he's just, I am the figment of imagination.
Yes.
Kind of like how
I exist in everybody.
Yeah, well I was going to say
you.
Yes, kind of like how Neil Gaiman has the endless, but that's figment of the endless.
Remember how when we went on Enchanted Tales with Belle, remember how the mirror turned into a door? It would be awesome if you could do that with Journey into Imagination, where let's say we're going into Riley's head. Here's the thing. How do we get into her head? Maybe we're just like in a room, and then the wall in front of us is like maybe one of those like projection windows that like they see inside the brain or inside headquarters and Inside Out. But then that opens up and we're in headquarters. And we journey into the rest. What?
You're thinking too what's the
creatively?
Word? Creatively.
How dare I?
I want you to
How
think.
dare I talk creatively about
what's another Disney film that could be translated into traveling into someone's body?
Toy Story. I don't know. You were thinking about like I thought you were going to say journeying into the imagination.
No. I was
Toy
gonna say,
Story represents imagination.
No.
It's kids playing with toys. Imagine if Woody was there and he's like, "Hey, howdy, partner. We're gonna go into this cowboy land." And then Buzz is like, "No, we're going to space." And it's like, "Why don't we do both?" And then we go into like space cowboy land.
Well, no,
that'd be wicked.
I was thinking, you were thinking too like, oh, there's a magic door and it opens. No, what they tell you before the ride starts, they're gonna be like, you're gonna be shrunk down and put into Riley's brain.
Oh my god! And are you combining Body Wars with the Journey into Imagination?
I was thinking how Honey I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh,
especially because they have that. In the
all three of those work.
But they shrink you down and then they're like, or you enter the first section of the ride and it's like shrinking you down, and then they just shoot lights at you. I say shoot. They flash lights at you, and they're like, now you're the size to fit inside Riley's head. Let's go! And then seamlessly you transition into...
And then you go into Riley's head.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah,
I was going to say,
that was my
with,
thought.
Like, Body Wars would be good, because my idea was going to be Inside Out, but you mix it with Cranium Command, since Wonders of Life is never coming back ever, apparently.
Rest in peace.
And we could do a whole episode about Wonders of Life at some point, I'm sure. But, I think, like... Inside Out would work. You know, you go into Riley's brain, Bing Bong is there, and he's like, "Come on, we gotta go save Riley's imagination." And that was actually a decent Richard Kind, I must say so myself.
Oh, I was about to go.
But I think Inside Out mixed with like Cranium Command, mixed with like a Body Wars kind of thing. You know, you go into the imagination.
That could
Bing
work.
Bong's there. And then we go through Imagination Land, and then it's like Riley's forgetting about her imagination, or some loose plot that we need.
I was gonna say there's not gonna be, if it was Inside Out, it's not going to be there's some insane plot going. It's just it's going to be what you were describing before, where they're like, here's how we make an idea work, or here's how we take a spark of inspiration and we turn it into an idea, and then we turn it into whatever the next thing is.
This whole time we've been thinking that we're going to get taught about imagination. But as we know from the Seas, we don't have to teach you about the Seas. It just needs to be a ride with an IP shoehorned into it.
Exactly.
Right? So...
Remember how in the Seas it just was literally just that? It was just Finding Nemo. It was just the plot of Finding Nemo. Anyways.
But...
Actually, we basically talked about most of what we wanted to talk about.
We talked about almost everything that we wanted to talk about. I'd certainly say bring back Cranium Command and put it into the theater, because currently the Pixar Film Fest, it was fun. It was nice to see movies I haven't seen, or shorts that I haven't seen in a while, actually in 3D with 4D in theater effects. And I'm sure there's a lot of kids or a lot of families who come to the parks and they've never seen those either. Maybe they don't buy the DVD or they didn't see the original movie. To them, that's brand new. And their reactions to it, like everyone there watched the Get a Horse short for what seemed like the first time. A lot of kids are probably seeing that for the first time.
Yeah.
Even though it was in front of a pretty prolific film. I believe that might have been Frozen. Maybe get rid of those shorts and put in something a little bit newer. Maybe something made for that thing. Maybe even a Journey into Imagination movie. Like, if you're not even going to keep Figment and Dreamfinder, make a short film and put it in that theater. Like, you don't have to keep the Imagination Institute, and the paint job is it used to be such weird color tones, and now it's like this orangey yellow, and it kind of feels like Epcot. But I think if we're gonna bring Epcot into the future, if you're gonna get rid of the colors that are on the outside of Universe of Energy in favor of just this metallic Guardians color, maybe update this ride and add a new kind of exterior, just to make it feel a little more grounded in whatever theme you're putting it into. Because that's the other thing. Disney hasn't said anything about Imagination. We don't know what's happening, and even the people who work there are constantly like, this is going to close eventually. I remember the ride ended, and I'm like, oh, I can't stay and watch the ride exit reset. She's like, sure, come on in. Like, either they were creating some great magic for me specifically, or they just didn't care, because they're like, this ride's going to be gone in like a year or so anyways, by the 50th anniversary of Disney World. So at some point, we're just not going to have it. So you may as well just get what you want right now.
It makes me think of those videos that you watch where the guy's recording and the cast members just go, "Are you recording?" And he's like, "Yeah, I want this ride's going away soon, and I just want to have something to remember by." And they're like, "All right."
And
sure.
That was a WDWNT video.
Was it?
Actually, yes, it was.
Oh wow!
It was from their channel, and that was before Wonders of Life closed.
Okay. As much as I'd love to see them bring back Dreamfinder and keep Figment, in all likelihood, they're going to completely gut it and replace it with an IP.
Well, here's the problem. They sent out a survey, or they were doing surveys with people quite a while back in front of Imagination. They said, how familiar are you with Figment? And it sounded like they were gauging whether or not they were going to get rid of Figment. And how many times have they made a mistake like this? Where they open up a ride, and it has just such poor response because they didn't understand who wanted it and what they wanted. And you could say Stitch's Great Escape, basically. You can say Alien Encounter. Alien Encounter and this original Journey into Your Imagination came at pretty much the same kind of time, where someone wanted to make it more modern and edgy for teens and for like older people, or like tweens who are coming to Disney, and they were horrible mistakes. I can look at two of those and be like, these were not good ideas. And then the replacements are two things that people equally still don't think are amazing: Stitch's Great Escape and Journey into Imagination with Figment. So you gotta understand what people want, and we keep making the joke that Epcot is not going to be able to go back to the way it was, but in this case, they really should bring back Figment and Dreamfinder, like the original versions, or even like the comic version of Dreamfinder, where he's like kind of younger and not even like a slightly older, chubbier man.
Mm-hmm. What they need to do is they need to find an artistic vision for what they want to do, and be uncompromising in the artistic nature of it, as opposed to the monetary nature of it, would be my final sort of takeaway, my conclusion to this entire thing. Because even if it is Doctor Strange Journey into Dormammu's realm, as long as they commit to it and make it look good, people will like it. I genuinely think that it should be its own thing, because I don't think Doctor Strange fits in Epcot as far as what Epcot
stands for, whatever that is.
I was going to say, we can't rigidly define what Epcot stands for, but there are a lot of things that would feel out of place in Epcot. Like, yes, you can have the Mickey meet and greets, that's fine because it is Disney, but having a place that seems to be themed around science and community, would feel very weird to have a ride about magic and
being more timeless and more Disney. Doctor Strange wouldn't fit there. Although Guardians is going to be there, and somehow it's going to be timeless.
It's the 80s. Everyone agrees that the 80s are timeless. The 80s don't age ever at all.
I guess that makes sense. We didn't even talk about the jumping fountains.
Who cares? That wasn't.
It's part of the pavilion.
Is it?
It's right outside. It's in that courtyard. It's supposed to be imaginative.
They're
good. I like it. It was fun. It's wet. It's Florida. Keep the fountains. I have nothing to say about it. Next, we're going to talk about the fountain outside.
Sorry.
outside of it that flows up, because imagination is turning your brain's thinking upside down.
This is all getting cut.
Bon voyage! I think we covered a lot. I think we covered a lot of really crazy ideas and some ideas that could actually be feasible and stuff that hopefully we'll see in the future. So in about like 3-4 years, when it's 2020, 2021, we'll come back and we'll laugh at all these things. Either laugh or be like, wow, we kind of nailed what it was going to do.
I hope so.
Who knew Star Wars was going to be in the imagination?
Yeah, who would have thought that a $4 billion property that recently Disney has been highly criticized for their handling of would be shoehorned somewhere it doesn't belong?
I think that as long as they uphold everything that One Little Spark, the song that Richard Sherman wrote, as long as they uphold all of that, I think that it will be good. I want to believe that the next thing that goes into this Imagination Pavilion is going to be just as awesome and imaginative as the original ride was.
I was going to say that song, One Little Spark, really sort of encapsulates what the ride is kind of about, really.
You mean the original full song and not the one where he says, "That's how you know a skunk is not a rose"?
Yes. I'm referring to the original song. And I would love to hear like a modern redo of that with like, wouldn't it be cool to have that with like full orchestration?
Yeah, remember that version I played for you that was like a cool alternative rock cover of it?
Sure.
That was great.
Yeah.
I think a new updated version of that song would be great. I just want to hear a new full version of that song.
That's fair.
In just a different style or like a more modern style. I think it'd be fun.
Well, I think that about does it for us.
Yeah, but we're gonna have to get out of this touch and taste lab at some point.
Yeah, Eric Idle's still here, so
so we're gonna get out of here. We're gonna take Figment's commute back to the Institute, and we'll find our way to World Showcase so that we can talk about how we would rehab a lot of that.
Join us next time when our heroes journey around the world at the World Showcase.
For Ride Rehab here on WDWNT, I'm Tyler Mann.
And I'm Tom Kiernan.
What? No, Eric. Eric, stop it.